Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today, we're doing another installment of the weekly meta breakdown where we look at the top performing decks on the MTG Arena ladder. Today, we are going to be focusing on standard best of one. It's still relatively early in the new set, Outlaws of Thunder Junction dropping, so the video is going to focus on decks that either feature new cards or are completely kind of new decks in the concepts of what they're doing. Things like Convoke, the traditional mono-red aggro, Azorius Control, largely haven't seen too much of a shakeup. They're putting up the same kind of win rate as before for the most part. So we're not going to feature those. The focus is really just on new decks. Once we get about a week to 2 weeks of data and things start to stabilize, then we'll just do consistent best decks in that capacity. If you're looking for best of three, we put out the video the other day. Best of one here for standard, and then I will look to get through the other formats provided we have the data throughout this week. Another thing, I'm going to be commentating on the Pizza Box Open, a large 100+ person standard tournament, best of three, later today. So the top 8 video will be up on my channel if you're watching this tomorrow. On Monday, we'll have the top 8 coverage there. So if you want to see the first large standard tournament and what people are bringing, what's doing well, definitely check that out. I'll have all the gameplay up on my channel. If you want to catch it live today, it's on Hollywood Pizza's Twitch channel as well. So jumping into it, we're going to look at the popularity of decks, and then we're going to look at the decks themselves. What we have is kind of 2 variations of mono red that are kind of topping. So mono red really accounts for about 24% of the meta right now. The prowess is the slick shot versions with more pump spells, kind of things like that. Mono red aggro is more creature dense. Boros Convoke, Azorius Control, then you have a couple versions of mono black skeletons, and then just the more traditional aggro list. Golgari mid-range, and then selesnya enchantments kind of rounding it up. So mono red, very popular right now. Slick shot show off is definitely a formidable threat, as we see kind of the 2 mono reds converging here at 12%. So still early. It's usually the case the first week or so of a new set, you're going to get mono red or other aggressive decks just kind of pushing for a large meta share. So keep that in mind. If you do want to kind of hedge against the matchup, figure you're going to be playing mono red at least 1 in 5 matches, I would say. So having some early removal, especially for things like slick shot, and then just understanding playing around slick shots. If they plot it, you really want to make sure you have an answer to turn 3 when they untap with the mana, because they could probably kill you that turn. So keep that in mind. So I will paste all these deck lists in the video description. So you can just, they'll be timestamped, you can copy the lists. If you want to use Untap, the link for Untap is in the video description as well, so you can get going. And just like Joey is subscribed on the channel right now, we are trying to hit 15,000 subs on the channel. So we are at 12,000 and change. If you haven't subbed, we do these for every format, every week, as much as the data allows us to. So if you want to stay up to date with all the best decks, definitely do it. It helps out the channel and to keep you up to date. We try to be as stats-based as possible. We're not going to say we played 3 games and this is the best deck ever. We're going to look at stats and kind of look at trends and stuff like that to give you an objective approach to do that. So greatly appreciate if you can. If you've already subbed, likes and comments go a long way to help out as well. So we are going to look April 16th through the 21st, 5 days of data, 260,000 games of Magic Best of One were played from Platinum to Mythic Rank. Again, you see Boros Convoke, this hasn't even been updated for the new Inspiring Vantage, so old lists are still doing well. We're just not going to cover that. But of the new decks, the highest win rate is 4-color Reanimator or the Rakdos Joins Up combo, so 63%. So how this deck works is you have a Rakdos Joins Up in your graveyard or a Hulking Metamorph. And basically what you're going to do is with things like Abuela's Awakening, so this could return target artifact or non-aura enchantment from your graveyard to the battlefield with X additional 1/1 counters on it. It's a spirit. So basically what happens is you have both of these in play. So Rakdos Joins Up is in play. It can reanimate the Hulking Metamorph. The Hulking Metamorph enters as a copy of target creature you control. This makes your Rakdos Join Up a creature as well. So this enters as a copy of the Rakdos Join Up. The Legend rule themselves, so this goes back to the graveyard. And then the second part of Rakdos Joins Up, whenever a legendary creature you control dies, Rakdos Joins Up deals damage equal to that creature's power to target opponent. So you basically just keep having this die, come back with the trigger, copy, die, come back, and then it's basically infinite damage. The rest of the deck is just kind of setting yourself up. So a lot of self-mill enablers, Otherworldly Gaze, Charter Course, Faithful Mending, Philology, Founding. So you're just really trying to churn through your deck and then just try to survive the early game, and then you kind of combo off. So there's a lot of looting effects, and like incidental life gain is also kind of impactful here. So you have Faithful Mending. Even just a 1/3 here is pretty good. Balaji being a 1/3 can kind of block now, notably with the slick shot decks that go over the top of you. So something to keep in mind there. Can't actually cast the Rakdos joins up in this deck, so another thing to keep in mind there. You're basically a base blue-white deck. So kind of sweet one there if you like combo decks. Then we go to mono white humans. So yes, mono white humans was a deck before, but we're seeing a couple newer cards in the deck. So just a human-centric aggressive deck, but you're also getting access to Grand Abolisher here. So your opponent can't activate abilities, cast spells during your turn. So you can get around counter spells, removal, stuff like that. So it gives you free reign to do whatever you want. We're also seeing Ultic Matter Weaver. So these are unfortunately both big score cards. So they're mythic rares for cards that really don't feel mythic rares. I think this is like a real money grab from Wizard's side. So I know people aren't happy about it either, but the Ultic Matter Weaver, whenever you cast a creature spell, you either get another creature or you get a token copy of target artifact you control. So for the most part, it's just like another way to kind of go wide with the deck. Plays nicely with Convoke, plays nicely with Adeline, even the Copper Vanguards. Actually, these are non-human, so never mind about the Copper Vanguard, but there's an aggressively slanted deck. Play your creatures out, kind of go from there. Not a lot of removal, so you got to be mindful of that. Slick Shot can just go over the top of you in that case. Then go to Naya Legends, 59%. So a lot of cards in here. So built around Annie, are you okay? Annie, are you okay, Yeti? So not loading, but Annie is an enchantment. It deals 5 damage to a creature when it enters the battlefield. And then whenever you have a triggered ability of a legend, you get an additional trigger. So this is a legends pile. So you have Bristly Bill. Whenever a line comes into play, you get to put a counter on a creature. And then for 5 mana, you could double the number of 1/1 counters on creatures. Well, with the Annie out, each line puts 2 counters on it. Inti gives you 2 discard effects. Kellen gives you 2 draw effects. Malira can give you 2 protection effects. Kind of mix into there. And then Pakal gets you double triggers. Same with Adeline. Animus Might is 1 mana removal spell in this deck. Agris Quos. I don't know what this card does. 4 mana, 2/4, double strike vigilance. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, choose up to 1 creature. It's suspected, otherwise suspected. So you can get rid of blockers here, or give your creatures menace, which is kind of cool. I think it's a little overpriced for what you're doing. You probably just want a little bit lower on the curve. Halana and Alana, roaming kind of in here. You got a lot of humans to kind of work with that, and then Hazard and Dejeru as a way to kind of cheat into play stuff. You get to leverage really good mana in this deck now between like Plaza Heroes, Cavern, stuff of that nature. So kind of cool Legends pile that's not your typical Rafine deck. Moving on, we go to the mono red prowess deck. So 59%, sorry, not 57, math. So similar to like some of the mono red builds, but you're basically using more prowessy threats as opposed to things like Feldon or Bloodthirsty Adversary. You have Fugitive Codebreaker in here that gets bigger and can also provide some card advantage. The big card that really made this deck pop off is Slick Shot Show Off. You can plot it away, so you put it away on layaway. 2 mana, goes to the side, and then you can cast it the subsequent turns. For 0 mana, Flying Haste, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +2/0 until end of turn. A lot of just cheap spells, pump effects, stuff like that to kind of offset with it. Demonic Ruckus could also be plotted away and get some value there. And then some copies of Godric on the top end. So that would be the Prowess deck. There's also the Izzet Prowess deck. So similar concept, but with blue you get access to Ledger Shredder, you get some card advantage and things like Consider and Sleight of Hand, so less all-in explosion, a little bit more grind, but then you also have disruption like Spell Pierce, Shore Up as protection as well. So very similar concept. The big thing here is you get Spire Bluff Canal, which allows you to have more clean mana to kind of curve out better. So the mono red version still performing a little bit better, about 4% better. But if you like your Izzet decks, it's not an unreasonable deck, all things considered. Then go to mono green Stompy, 55%. So what we're trying to do here is like a 1/1 counter themes. So you have the new Gold Vein Hydra, X green, 0/0 Vigilance, Trample, Haste. A lot of powerful keywords here. Enters battlefield with X 1/1 counters, and then when it dies, you create a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to its power. So it gives you something on the when it leaves as well. Scrap Gorgers in here can eat away at graveyards, ramp you a bit. You have Flourishing Bloomkin that just gets bigger over time. Sharp-Eyed Rookie can also get bigger and allow you to investigate as well. Archdruid's Charm is a fight effect, find lands, or blow up artifacts, enchantments. Contaminator can proliferate any of your counters, so like the oil counters off like Evolving Adaptive, any of the +1/1 counters. A couple copies of Pelucranos. We have the Bristle Bud Farmer, 4 mana 5/5 trample. The reasonable stats on its own. When it enters the battlefield, you create 2 food tokens. Whenever it attacks, you may sacrifice food. If you do, mill 3 cards. You may put a permanent from among them into your hand. So some card advantage engine there, and then some Nissas on the top end. It can also allow you to like overrun your opponent. Then lastly, we go to Mono Black Skeletons, 54%, huge sample here at 19,000 games. And you're leveraging some of the kind of skeleton matter cards. So Corpse of the Lost gives your skeletons a boost in terms of power and haste. You can kind of be bounced back to your hand whenever you descend. If Tiny Bones joins up, that when legends come into play, you get to mill a player, and then they lose a life. And then you can also, when it enters the battlefield, you get to force them to discard. Big thing here is you got Forsaken Miner as another 1 mana recursive skeleton to go alongside Cult's Conscript. Some Tiny Bones in here as well to kind of thread in the graveyard. You have Case of the Stash Skeleton, which gives you another skeleton, and then gives you like Demonic Tutor on the backside. The one thing I mentioned when we saw this list last time was I don't think Field of Ruins is where you want to be in this deck per se. It technically could trigger Crimes, but I think just playing like Mirrex would be better, all things considered. In best of 1, the format's way too fast, plus like most of the decks are like monocolored or stuff. You're going to have like a very limited chance to hit something in mono red, and it's more likely to kind of screw up your mana base curve, like with so many 1-drop blocks, to have this many like colorless lands kind of in terms of the deck. But that's kind of it for the week. Let me know what you've been playing, what you've been liking, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.